Hey everybody, I'm the Drink Pro. Today we're doing a side-by-side, Little Book Chapter 3 versus Chapter 4. What's up everybody, Kyle the Drink Pro here with you yet again. Thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, sharing the video with your friends, joining me on the Patreon, checking me out on any of the social media platforms. I'm hoping to get a little bit more into TikTok in the near future. I am an old man, though, in that universe, so we'll see how it goes. Speaking of old men, today we are drinking Little Book. Now, Little Book is the project of Freddie Noe, who is the son of Fred Noe, the master distiller at Jim Beam Suntory. This is a sort of pet project that he's developed to sort of really show what he can do. You know, Freddie's starting to come into his own as a master distiller, and he's got some big shoes to fill with Booker Noe and Fred Noe. You know, that's a hell of a lineup to come from. So he's trying to flex and show that he can stand up to the pressure and come up with some really interesting and creative pours. Now, I've already done a review of Little Book Chapter 3, and I was blown away by it. It was absolutely fantastic. I will say, since I've had it again, it wasn't as fantastic as that first time, but who can beat your first time, right? What are you going to do? So, I've got today the Little Book Chapter 4, and I want to compare it to Little Book Chapter 3. Now, it's not really a fair comparison because they're trying to do different things, but I think people generally know whether or not they like Chapter 3, then they will know whether or not they will like Chapter 4. I want to give a quick shout out to two of my patrons, Nate Cooper and Trevor Kunkel. Nate and Trevor provided me, respectively, the samples of Little Book Chapter 4 and Little Book Chapter 3 for this side-by-side, so I'm happy to have their support. If you guys want to be supporting members too, feel free to send me samples. I've got an address that you can send them to. Go right there. So Little Book Chapter 4 is called Lessons Honored. It's essentially a tribute by Freddie to his father Fred. There are 3 different whiskeys that make up the Little Book Chapter 4 that have been blended together. There's a 4-year-old brown rice whiskey, an 8-year-old high rye mash bill rye whiskey, and a 7-year-old classic straight bourbon. And each of these sort of fits in a different place for Freddie. Freddie has said that the 4-year-old brown rice whiskey reminds him of the first distilling project he did with his father, Fred. The 8-year-old high rye mash bill reminds him of working on the Booker's Rye release. That was one of the first times that both Fred and Freddie were tasting together on a panel to come up with a blend. Finally, the 7-year bourbon, it's actually my favorite story. Freddie decided he was going to go ask Fred for some help and say, hey, I'm trying to figure out how to get this the right way. Can you help me with this tasting and figure out which bourbon is the best? And the one that Fred ended up picking, Freddie put into this blend. I think that's really fun. Little Book Chapter 4 is retailing around $125 MSRP, and the proof point is 122.8 proof. This is a no-joke price point, a no-joke proof point. These are expensive, high-proof whiskeys. It's kind of a risk if you're buying these blind, which is exactly why I hope you're here to find out if they're good or not. I'm going to put more of my attention on the Little Book Chapter 4. I'll basically use Chapter 3 as a side-by-side and say it's more of this, it's less of this than Chapter 3. There's already a review of Chapter 3. Go look at it if you want to see more about it. Also, I kind of like this blue glass in these sample bottles. That's fun. Ah! Lost a cap. I'm really not sure what to expect with this whiskey. I've never even heard of brown rice bourbon. What the hell is that? So, coming into this with some trepidation, I'll be honest with you. I think people who tasted Little Book Chapter 3 in a vacuum would probably come into this super excited, but there was a lot of trepidation around Little Book Chapters 1 and 2 as well. So, I think people look at Chapter 4 and go, oh, this isn't sort of a standard bourbon like the Chapter 3 was. What the hell is brown rice bourbon? Which is the same question I just asked. Maybe it'll be good. Who knows? Let's go ahead and give it a nosing. Well, I really like the nose on this. Oh, boy. It is beautiful. It's brown sugar. Oh, here we go. So you know it's good. I can't get my nose deep enough in it, and I'll start sneezing. Oh, God. Brown sugar and cinnamon, just right off the bat. Brown sugar and cinnamon. That is freaking great. Ooh, I'm getting molasses, finally. I really like molasses as a note. It's a sweetness with a hint of bitterness, which is kind of weird for most people, but it's a great, deep, rich sweetness. And I'm getting that on this nose here. I'm getting a little bit of that molasses, and then obviously the cinnamon and the baking spices are really prominent. I mean, I might get a hint of apple skins, that sort of bitterness, and then like a hint of apple. but this is staying pretty out of the floral and fruity realm, at least on the initial nosing. It's much more in that baking spice, hints of herbalness, hints of woodiness, and then super sweet brown sugar. I'm almost getting like a cereal note. That could be that brown rice bourbon, I'm not sure. As it opens up, I'm starting to see that almond pop up. Ooh, just a hint of toasted oak as well. That's kind of nice. Oh, see, I may have spoke too soon because I said that there wasn't much fruitiness or floralness, but as I kind of let it rest and open up, I'm getting little hints of things. Little hints. Just a touch of geranium. That one's for you, Nate. Maybe like a banana note, a really, really subtle banana note. Now, I know the 1792 and the Old Barton whiskeys really predominantly feature a banana note. This is much more subtle than that, but it's there in a really fun, subtle way. I actually sort of prefer it in this fashion, this subtle, almost banana bread quality. A banana bread that's more nutty and sweet and cinnamony than actually banana-y. Okay, let me smell Little Book Chapter 3 real quick and do a back-to-back. A lot of citrus and fruit and sweetness on number 3, and number 4 doesn't have any of that. Number 4 is much deeper and richer. I think that rice is really contributing to that deep sweetness, that molasses, that brown sugar. Those kinds of sweet are showing up, I think, because of that brown rice bourbon. Now, who's to say? I'm not a master blender, but boy, there's something cool showing up there, and I think that might be part of it. All right, let's go ahead and taste it. That's weird. That's weird. Now, weird isn't always bad. Weird can be good weird, but, it puts you in the right mind state. Don't come into this thinking, it's a classic bourbon. No, it is doing something very different. Front of the palate is all sweet. Creamy sweetness. The mid palate, you get into this gentle, fresh cut oak with like peanut shells. And the finish is somehow grain forward. The finish really feels like the husks of wheat or the husks of corn or something. There's some sort of weird grain forward like husky note I'm getting. And not husky like a big fella. Husky like the remnants of grains. But the nose is so good. Okay, here we go. Caramel, vanilla, creaminess, but they're very subtle. They're quiet notes. It's not like, this is a caramel bomb or a vanilla bomb. No, it's just like this sort of general sweet creaminess. And then very quickly into the mid-palate, you get a distinct switch from that sweetness into this almost bitter nuttiness and woodiness. It really moves quick. Ooh, okay. There's like almonds and walnuts kind of together in the mid-palate that linger in the finish, and that bitter black walnut vibe keeps sticking around. All right, let's see what happens when I add a little bit of water to it. Again, this is at 122.8 proof, so it's over 60% alcohol. A little bit of water might help open it up. Once you get over 60%, you're getting into the territory where water really could make a difference. Oh boy, and it does in this case. Wow. The sweetness really pops. I was talking about the brown sugar and molasses that all sort of coalesces into this big vanilla caramel bomb. Wow, adding a little water really opens this up. Ooh, I'm starting to get some cherry notes. Other fruity notes are coming to the forefront. Get some stewed apples and candied fruit. God, this is just beautiful. Okay, let's taste it. Again, the water just kind of dulled all the things I was tasting. The nose became beautiful and vibrant and expressive, but the palate just sort of lost a little bit of luster. If anything, adding water to it on the palate opened up and brought out more of the bitterness in the mid-palate. That nutty bitterness really starts to show up more and more. If I compare that to the batch 3 here. I don't think you can beat the batch 3. I think batch 4 is really interesting. It's fun. It's expressive. but it doesn't have the sort of classic bourbon vibe that I'm looking for from most of my bourbons. And the batch 3 really just hits all the classic bourbon notes. I think batch 4 is really good if you want something sort of pushing in a different direction, something that's trying to be more unique. It just feels less balanced to me. I think batch 3 was like a perfect balance of all these different flavors, and batch 4 is trying aggressively to do something different, and in the process kind of losing something that is really important for me personally in a good, solid, drinkable bourbon. So I think Freddie is going to be a fantastic master distiller when it's his turn. And I kind of feel like Little Book is really him coming into his own. It's him experimenting with different things. Some are going to be hits and some are going to be misses. That's just the nature of the process. This is not a miss per se, but it's not a classic bourbon drinker's bourbon. Overall, it's a good whiskey. I don't think it's worth $125. I do think the batch 3 is. But batch 4 is just doing something cool. That brown rice really comes forward in some interesting ways. But on the whole, I'm not going to pick one up. You all keep drinking like professionals, and I'm going to keep drinking this glass right here. Cheers.